Some killers hide in abandoned houses, some hide deep inside the wilderness, but this killer chose a place nobody would ever suspect. A mosque, a place where people came to pray, a place where families felt safe, a place where trust was never supposed to be questioned. And for days, while worshippers walked only a few feet away, a man was allegedly dismembering human bodies behind a locked door. What investigators discovered inside would shock an entire nation, and what they later found inside the suspect's home suggests this may have only been the beginning. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and let's step into the darkness. This is Crimson Sands. Today's case takes us to Morocco, a country known for its rich history, breathtaking landscapes, and tightly connected communities. More specifically, to a quiet town called Ben Ahmed, a place where neighbors knew each other by name, a place where crime rarely made headlines until April 2025. Because that month something happened that would leave an entire nation horrified. And it all began at a local mosque. On the afternoon of April 20th, residents arrived for prayer, as they normally did. But something felt wrong. The mosque bathrooms have been locked. Again, the man responsible for maintaining them was a 52-year-old caretaker named Said. Locals were already familiar with his strange behavior. Many described him as aggressive, unpredictable, and deeply troubled. Over the years, dozens of complaints had reportedly been filed against him. Yes, he always seemed to return. This time, however, things were difficult. As worshippers approached the bathrooms, they noticed a foul odor coming from inside. Not the smell of sewage, not the smell of garbage, something far worse. Some witnesses later claimed they had already noticed the signs of blood. Concern quickly turned into panic. Authorities were contacted. When police finally entered the building, they were met with a scene that seasoned investigators would never forget. Blood, knives, plastic bags, and inside those bags, human remains. The discovery sent shock waves through the entire community, but the horror was just the beginning. Investigators soon realized the body had been dismembered. Even more disturbing, some remains appeared to have been stripped from the bone with an unusual level of precision. This wasn't random violence. This looked methodical, deliberate, calculated. As forensic teams processed the scene, another chilling discovery emerged. The killer had allegedly attempted to dispose of additional remains through the drainage system connected to the bathrooms. It appeared he had been interrupted before he could finish, which raised a terrifying question. How long had this been happening? Police dogs were brought in, following the scent trail away from the mosque. That trail eventually led investigators to a nearly public area. There, they discovered additional bags containing human remains, and among them, human fingers. Forensic experts examined the evidence. At first, investigators believed they were dealing with a single victim. But then, they made a disturbing realization. The remains didn't all belong to the same person. They were now looking at evidence suggesting multiple victims. The investigation immediately expanded. Missing person reports were reviewed. Families were contacted. DNA testing began. The first victim was identified as a local man in his 50s, a family man, respected by neighbors, known for his good reputation, no criminal history, no known enemies, nothing that could explain such a brutal fate. Then came the second identification, another married man, another father, another resident who had vanished without explanation. He had left home weeks earlier, telling his family he was running errands. He never returned. Now investigators had two unconfirmed victims, but many feared there were more, and attention quickly shifted toward one man, Said, the caretaker, the man who had been guarding the locked bathrooms, the man allegedly found near the scene, the man many locals had feared for years. Residents described a long history of disturbing behavior. They claimed he frequently threatened people, carried knives, abused the animals, and reacted violently when someone confronted him. Several villages later spoke about incidents involving tortured cats and dogs, stories that many had once dismissed as disturbing but isolated cats. Now those stories were being viewed through a very difficult lens, because investigators began asking a frightening question: what if those animals have been practiced? As police searched Said's residence, the investigation took another dramatic turn. Inside the home, authorities reportedly discovered enormous bladed weapons, but that wasn't the most shocking part. According to multiple reports, investigators also found a handwritten list, a list containing names of people from the local community, people who had previously argued with them, people who had reported him, people who had crossed his path. To many observers, it looked less like a list of names and more like a list of future victims. One of the confirmed victims was reportedly on that list. Suddenly, the case no longer looked like an isolated murder. It looked like the possible beginnings of a serial killer. But then another rumor began spreading throughout Morocco. A rumor so disturbing that many people refused to believe it. Some residents claimed investigators were examining allegations that human remains may have been cooked before discovery. Rumors immediately spread across Morocco. Some claimed there were 3 victims. Others claimed there were 5. Social media exploded with speculation, but investigators urged cautions. At the time of recording, only 2 victims have been officially linked to the case. Everything else remains unconfirmed, and perhaps the most unsettling mystery remains unsolved. Why were these men targeted? One theory suggested the first victim had confronted Saeed after witnessing him mistreating animals. Others claimed he had challenging behavior taking place around the mosque facilities. If true, that confrontation may have sealed his fate. As for the second victim, no clear motive has ever emerged. His family reportedly stated they had no known connection to Saeed, no disputes, no history, no obvious reason, and that our Argentine team may be the most terrifying part of this entire case. Because when investigators can identify a motive, people feel safer. They can tell themselves it happened for a reason. But when there is no reason, anyone can imagine themselves becoming the next victim. Today, the investigation remains ongoing. Authorities continue examining evidence. Families continue searching for answers. And many residents of Ben Ahmed are asking the same question. Were there only 2 victims? Or were investigators looking at something much bigger? Something that had remained hidden for years behind a locked door that nobody sought to open. A door located beside one of the most trusted places in the community. A place where people came seeking peace. Not horror, not death, and certainly not a nightmare that would capture the attention of an entire nation. What do you think? Was this the work of a serial killer whose plans were interrupted? Or are there still victims who have yet not to be discovered? Let me know your thoughts. And as always, stay curious, stay cautious. I'll see you in the next case. Bye.